In the small town of Ravenswood, nestled deep within the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, a chilling legend lingered among the locals. They whispered tales of the Shadowed Grove, a mysterious patch of woods where the darkness seemed to seep into every corner, where the trees twisted unnaturally and the air felt heavy with foreboding. Few dared to venture near it, and those who did often returned with harrowing stories of their own. Among these stories, one stood out, a tale that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. It was said that deep within the heart of the Shadowed Grove, there dwelled a malevolent entity known only as the Eclipse Witch. According to the legend, she was a sorceress of unimaginable power, cursed by the darkness she had sought to control. The story began decades ago, when the town of Ravenswood was plagued by a series of unexplained disappearances. Each victim vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispered rumors and fearful speculation. As fear spread like wildfire through the community, desperate townsfolk turned to the old legends for answers. It was then that they learned of the Eclipse Witch, a being said to feed on the souls of the living, luring unsuspecting travelers into her domain with promises of forbidden knowledge and untold riches. Legend had it that she roamed the Shadowed Grove under the cover of night, her form obscured by the darkness, her eyes glowing like smoldering embers in the blackness. Despite the warnings, there were always those foolish enough to seek out the witch, drawn by the allure of her supposed powers. Among them was a young woman named Eliza, whose brother had vanished into the depths of the Shadowed Grove months earlier. Determined to uncover the truth behind his disappearance, she set out alone into the forest, armed with nothing but her courage and a flickering lantern. As Eliza ventured deeper into the woods, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to loom ever closer, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers grasping for her soul. She pressed on, her heart pounding in her chest, until at last she came upon a clearing bathed in an eerie silver light. In the center of the clearing stood a dilapidated cottage, its windows boarded up and its roof sagging under the weight of years of neglect. Eliza hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the door, but before she could knock, a voice spoke from the darkness behind her. "You should not have come here, child." Eliza spun around, her lantern casting flickering shadows across the forest floor. Standing before her was a figure cloaked in darkness, her features obscured by the folds of her robe. But even in the dim light, Eliza could see the glint of malice in the witch's glowing eyes. "I seek answers," Eliza said, her voice trembling but defiant. "Answers about my brother." The witch chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "And what makes you think I would give them to you, child? What makes you think I would spare you the same fate as him?" But Eliza refused to be intimidated. Steadying her nerves, she stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "I will not leave until I have the truth," she declared. For a moment, the witch seemed taken aback, her eyes narrowing as she studied the young woman before her. Then, with a sinister smile, she beckoned Eliza into the cottage, disappearing into the shadows without another word. Cautiously, Eliza followed, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet as she entered the dimly lit interior of the cottage. The air was thick with the scent of ancient magic, and Eliza felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the true extent of the witch's power. "Sit," the witch commanded, gesturing to a rickety wooden chair beside a crackling fireplace. Eliza hesitated, but obeyed, her eyes never leaving the witch's piercing gaze. For hours, they spoke, the witch weaving tales of darkness and despair, of souls trapped between worlds and lost to the shadows. With each passing moment, Eliza felt the weight of her fear pressing down upon her, threatening to consume her entirely. But just as she was about to give in to despair, a glimmer of hope flickered within her heart. It was then that she realized the truth that had been staring her in the face all along. The witch was not her enemy. She was her brother. With a newfound sense of resolve, Eliza confronted the witch, demanding to know the truth behind her brother's disappearance. And as the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, she understood. Her brother had not been taken by the witch. He had become one with her, his soul bound to hers for all eternity. In the end, Eliza faced a choice. She could accept her brother's fate and join him in the darkness, or she could turn her back on the witch and forge her own path, free from the shadows that had consumed her family for generations. With a heavy heart, she made her decision, bidding farewell to the witch and the life she had once known. As she stepped out into the moonlit night, she felt a sense of liberation wash over her, knowing that she was finally free from the curse that had haunted her family for so long. But as she disappeared into the darkness of the forest, a single question lingered in her mind. Would she ever truly be free? Or would the shadows of the past continue to haunt her wherever she went? Only time would tell. And so, the legend of the eclipse witch lived on, a cautionary tale for those who dared to seek out the darkness that lurked within us all. As Eliza ventured deeper into the forest, the weight of her decision pressed heavily upon her. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, and with each step, she felt the pull of the shadows threatening to consume her. But she refused to look back, her resolve stronger than ever before. Days turned into weeks as Eliza wandered through the dense foliage, her only companion the whispering wind and the rustling of leaves beneath her feet. With each passing moment, she felt herself growing stronger, her fear giving way to a newfound sense of purpose. But just as she began to believe that she had left the darkness behind, a familiar voice echoed through the trees, sending a chill down her spine. "Eliza!" She froze, her heart pounding in her chest as she scanned the forest for any sign of the source. And then she saw him, a figure cloaked in shadow, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It was her brother. For a moment, Eliza was overcome with joy, her heart soaring at the sight of him. But as he drew nearer, she saw the truth reflected in his eyes, the same truth that had driven her from the witch's cottage all those weeks ago. He was no longer her brother. He was something else entirely, a creature of darkness bound to the will of the Eclipse Witch. With a heavy heart, Eliza backed away, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. But no matter how fast she ran, the darkness seemed to follow, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare her in its grasp. Desperate and alone, Eliza knew that she had only one option left. With a trembling hand, she reached into her pocket and retrieved the ancient talisman that had been passed down through her family for generations. As she held it aloft, a blinding light erupted from its surface, casting the darkness back into the shadows from whence it came. For a moment, the forest was bathed in brilliant silver light, and Eliza felt a surge of power coursing through her veins. With a mighty cry, she unleashed the full force of her magic upon the creature that had once been her brother, banishing it back into the depths of the shadowed grove once and for all.